All right. But yeah, so just general, do you guys have questions about judging or manufacturing or any fundraising questions, time management? Basically, this one's just a session for you guys. So like I said, feel free to either unmute yourself and ask your questions or type it in the chat. Nobody has any questions?
Um,
Ethan, I think you remuted. Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Sounds.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
I just wanted to ask about fundraising specifically. So,
Okay.
like for our team, we're kind of struggling to get sponsorships recently. I just wanted to ask, um, I kind of want to explain how we're doing it currently, and could you just give us some feedbacks?
Perfect.
So, what we basically did is we found local businesses around us, and we scraped it through software, and we have around a list of 500 of them, and we're just like constantly cold calling them, and then once we get some of their information, um, we send them our sponsorship pack if they ask for more information, and we it hasn't really gone past that point yet at this point.
Okay. No, I mean, I think that's a great start. And I would also suggest like maybe reaching out to people like within your local community. Like I understand like trying to scrape 500 contacts, but if you have some sort of connection, whether that is a neighbor or the store down the street, like where you might have a little bit more of a like you can go in person and kind of show your sponsorship packet might also be a good idea. Just because it's a little bit harder to reject like face to face, whether that is versus like by email or a phone call.
Okay.
But you were doing great with the sponsorship packet. That would be like the next step. Another idea, but yeah, I would say like in like your team's neighborhoods, like going knocking on doors and seeing if you guys know anybody and there's some sort of connection that you can see face to face, and hopefully that makes it a little bit easier. That's kind of like the general recommendation that we give teams. You can also go down the fundraising route of like if you guys do like partner with some sort of restaurant or anything like that where they'll give some of the proceeds back to you guys. Um, that's an option. If you guys are associated with your school as well, like sometimes they can help sometimes, especially if you guys can use like their nonprofit status and stuff like that. But yeah, Merritt, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think those are all great ideas. Sometimes I think the local route is going to be that easiest if you can make that connection. Or I think Vana might have mentioned it, but like, who do your parents know? Or we've seen some success with teams that if you've got like a parent teacher organization, like a PTO or some kind of sporting event or something going on at your school, maybe ask if you can set up a booth. So as parents are coming in to watch the local football game, they might own their own business or they might have the ability at their company to give you a sponsorship. They just don't know about your team, right? So if you're able to be there right at the entrance, talk about what your team's doing, representing your school, just like the teams representing the sports, that might help make that connection that you're just looking for and get your foot in the door.
Okay. All right. I'll just read off some of the questions that we have in the chat. So, Miranda, you asked, what materials do you need for building the car specifically? Like, I know you need the model block, but are there other materials um, needed to purchase from the Sum Racing shop? So, I think Merritt just responded, but basically,
Yeah,
go for it.
I was just say I dropped a response in there. You're right. The only material that you technically have to purchase is the model block, and that would be through Race to Learn. There's a bunch of other materials on that site that you can use, but your team has to make the call for each car component if it's something you're going to make, you're going to buy. And ultimately, from an engineering perspective, it's not a bad thing if you buy something, especially given the time crunch for regionals, time crunch for nationals. That's an engineering decision that you make. Hey, we invested our time into car design, so we purchased these wheels, and vice versa. Ivana, I don't know if you're able to pull up the competition regulations,
I can.
section T 1.1. If we can go to that. And that's going to provide a great summary of, so it's going to be our tech regs.
There you're good. I'll go to the portal. Give me a second.
She's pulling that. Basically, this is going to be the list of the part components that you're made up of.
All right, you said which one, sorry?
T1.1.
1.1,
Should
perfect.
be basically our first thing. So each of those components is what you kind of have to make that decision for. So number one, that car body is going to be made out of that model block that you would purchase from Race to Learn. 2 and 3, those wings, they can be made from any material of your choosing. So that's something you could 3D print, out of plastic, out of metal, carbon fiber, however you want to do it. Those are components that you generally make or partner with a sponsor maybe to make. 4 and 5, your wheels and wheel support systems. Again, something you can make as a team. You could outsource and purchase it as a team. Race to Learn sells wheels if that's something that you are interested in or on a time crunch and don't have access to a printer. And as we scroll through the list, I guess the other thing I should cover on wheels actually. So other things in your wheel assemblies that you're going to have axles, you might have bearings, if you go that route, bushings, anything like that. All of those kind of car components are things that, again, you're going to have to source and make yourself or purchase. So it's just kind of up to your team what you do for each of those elements. And then 6 and 7 are your tether line guides. Those are something you technically can make. I would recommend just purchasing those often though, because they're pretty cheap, especially if you just get the metal screw eye ones. And those are safety features, so you definitely want to make sure they're robust. Your decals and surface finishing, so that's your paint. You're going to need to find a supplier for. Decals are things that you can make yourself. We're talking about number 9, like the STEM Racing logo decal, but also your car number that needs to be in your car. And if you have any sponsors or team kind of branding elements that you want to put on your car, you can make them yourself. You can purchase those. And then your halo and your driver's helmet are 3D printed components as well. So if you kind of sit down and go through each one of those lists for your car components, hopefully that answers the kind of questions of what you would need to maybe make versus buy. But it's specific to each team. Like I said, there's products on there if you would like to purchase them. But ultimately, the only thing you have to purchase is the model block.
Miranda, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Oh,
Okay.
wait, one more. Do you like what was it, the CO2 tanks? Like, do you need to buy those? 'Cause they're kind of expensive.
You do not know. We will supply, like you can buy them for yourself if you want to use to test, but we will be providing those at the competition for the cars themselves.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And it's ultimately something, especially if you're starting out, I would recommend going to the virtual training guide and looking at the info session that we did on engineering before when it comes to testing. Because that is something that you could purchase your CO2 canisters and purchase a racetrack or different things like that to do whole car testing. But like Ivana said, it can get very expensive. You also can get just as much out of it from an engineering perspective at a component test level. So how can you test your wheels? How can you test your bearings, your wing structural rigidity, all of those kinds of things that are far less expensive than purchasing a track and things like that as you're getting started and on your journey.
Yep, exactly. Okay, moving on to the next question. So next question came from Nieve, I think, or please correct me if I'm saying your name wrong. But they're asking for recommendations to packing and transporting pit display posters when traveling by plane. So this is also depending on like what you are using to construct your pit display. But most of the time teams will either have like vinyl that's like rolled up and they travel with it in some sort of like poster cylinder type thing. And then they attach it to the pit display board. If you're talking about a pit display poster that's in the tabletop poster, you can think of it as like a trifold, but you can really come up with any sort of idea that like we are not like, I guess let me rephrase this. You're not being judged on how you bring the stuff to the site. Some teams did ship and picked it up in the local area if that is something you want to do. But ideally you bring it with you in on the plane. But yeah, most people just either had vinyl that was foldable that they could put in a suitcase and bring to the site. But that's kind of like the general idea. But yeah, Mary, go for it.
I was just going to add the other thing I'd follow up on is we did make sure when you're packing your competitions for an in-person competition like nationals, you account for all kinds of situations, right? You want to be planning for that risk. We saw last year a few teams that unfortunately arrived during a lot of rain and their materials were in a suitcase. And I totally didn't think about it until it happened to this team. Their suitcase got wet when it was being offloaded from the plane and their materials inside, their portfolios, everything got wet. So I'd recommend, if you're putting something in a checked bag, that you maybe wrap it in some plastic or put it in a grocery bag and tie that up or something, just as an extra layer. Or if you've got it in a poster or one of those poster tubes, it should be safe. But keep all that in mind when you're packing. Especially if it's checked bags, it might get thrown around. It might get crushed a little bit if it's a soft-sided bag. Those kind of things when it comes to your poster.
Yeah. Or yeah, if you also want to go like the safest route too, like carrying it with like having it in the suitcase that you're going to be carrying on versus checking. I understand sometimes the display might be too large to put in a carry-on bag, but something to think about as you're constructing your pit display and thinking about like how do you want to do the display and what poster style you want to go for, taking into account the traveling portion. Okay, next question came from Ella. Can we have other text on the pit display slide, like little text boxes? Um, Ella, can you describe what you mean by little text boxes with additional details?
Yeah, it's what last year at nationals we got feedback that says like, oh, put text on your slide as to why you why you put this here, why you chose these colors. Are we allowed to do that? I just wanted to double check because like as I was reading competition regulations, I just didn't want to lose points.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Can you clarify, Ella, are you development class or professional?
Professional.
And you're talking about for your display for regionals?
For regionals, yeah.
So the kind of I wouldn't put deep text boxes on that first page where you have those screenshots.
Yeah, I'll
what I
pull it
would
up while you talk, Merritt.
Yep, yeah, I think she's pulling up the template. But if you can think those arrows on that first page that reference, hey, these are our pens. And then in your bill of materials, that would really be where you do those additional details of, hey, our pens are purchased from the site and they're biodegradable or whatever the kind of details you have. You really don't want to add too much to that first page. So yeah, kind of like this example shows, if you've seen that, where you're calling the attention and you could put a small note like, can't really see it on my, so if you've got like pen holder or something there, right? So it says like pen holder, you could put pen holder item 4, and then on your bill of materials list have item 4 pen holder.
Yeah.
And just talk about like this team did here, did the description of it. And that would be where I see your follow-up questions for like the risk management and sustainability. That would be where you kind of talk about those elements, right? So maybe your business cards are, recycled paper or something, and they might cost you a bit more, but you're, being sustainable, so it's worth it to your team. Or things like I'll say like this team has a short throw projector, right? So we're going to talk about sustainability, what might happen to that projector afterwards. So after competition, it's going to be donated to the art class because they don't have a projector right now. Or your risk, what happens if your power goes out? Does that mean that your board is completely without any material, or do you guys have like a poster that you're bringing as a backup in case the power goes out? Those kinds of things. Or if in case, like, say it says $650, in case you can't raise that $650, what would you do in place of that? Those kind of details
the
I would put in
comment
the bill of
about
materials.
risk management that you put like financial risk versus physical risk. I think risk management encompasses all type of risk, whether it is financial or physical.
Yeah, I would agree. So hopefully that kind of answers your first question about the text on the pit display side. I would just keep it to maybe like a note at a minimum, like saying like
Yeah.
line 1, line 2. Really, any text should be on those 2 subsequent pages.
Okay, thank you.
And then I saw one about, are there any limitations as to what the wheels can be made out of? It should be like the second regulation in that wheel section of the technical regs, but I don't believe so. I think it's really any material of your choosing. So I think it's like T9.2, Ivana, or unless it's there, single.
Here, I'll go to the
Yeah.
T9.
So I say like T7 maybe. I always forget which section wheels is. All right, oh, you go up. Sorry.
You're good.
They used to be T8, and now I think it shifted last year.
Yeah, T9, T7. I mean
T7. All right, so T7.2 or something. It should be 2 or 1. Yeah, so it might be back in the definitions, but I don't believe so. I don't believe there's a restriction on what it can be.
yeah. I'll go back to the top 2 just in case.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think really the only thing that's restricted on material is you're gonna find the body. Car body has to be made out of that official foam material. And I think that's really it, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, all cars must be manufactured using the model block. Yeah, I think that might be it. And then
I think I
yeah,
guess sorry, just one thing I'm thinking of too. When it comes to materials, just make sure you are selecting something that's not going to, I'll say, lose its shape or anything while it's running, while it's being measured, right? Like if you go with something that's super thin and flimsy, is it gonna maintain track surface contact with? Is it gonna meet those regulations all the same? So just keep that in mind depending on what material you're considering. If you're considering something like very flexible, it might not pass those regulations.
Yeah. And then follow-up question about like similar to the risk management, but now on the sustainability side, like does it mean environmental sustainability or financial sustainability? And I think this also applies to both. Normally, I think we lean towards the environmental, like what are you gonna do with all the stuff that you're gonna put on your pit display, for example? But similarly could be like quote unquote financial if like you're reusing things from last year to this year. I think sustainability can be applied to both.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say, the saying holds true. Sometimes the most sustainable purchase is making no purchase at all.
Yeah.
Right. So just keep that in mind.
All right. Next question came about what are the main features judges are looking for in a pit display? Same with team identity. So this is going to be located in your competition regulations. If you go all the way to the bottom, you will have your grading rubrics that specifically call out all these things. So for pit display, I'm pretty sure on the enterprise there should be, yeah. Well, the team identity, there's a section specifically for team identity. So these are the things that the judges are going to be looking at and how they'll grade, whether it's going to be on the lower end band or on the higher end band. And then same thing for your pit display. So when people say like build your pit display to the rubric, this is what they're referencing. Like it's great if you want to add a bunch of different things, but if there's not a score that the judges can relate it to, it's going to be hard for them to give you a score in the higher end range, in case you missed some of the information that is on this rubric. So for anything related to the competition, make sure to go through and read the scoring rubrics for both development and professional class, and make sure you're hitting all the points to be able to get the highest score possible. Okay, next question. Is there a way to add or take away, or Mara, do you have anything to add to that? You're good if you don't.
I was just gonna maybe say that second category there where you see pit display content, clarity, and impact. A lot of those descriptions can be good indicators for what you might want to look for, right? So if we look in our low band there, it says 1 to 5 points would be repetition of portfolio contents. So the same judges that review your pit display at nationals and for regionals will also be reviewing your enterprise portfolios. So they're going to be able to pick out if you've just copy and pasted text from your portfolio. So you want to make sure you're rewriting it, you're wording it differently. It's not just the pit display isn't just taking your enterprise portfolio and pasting it on a 8 foot by 3 foot display. We really want to make sure that you're kind of marketing your team and showing off those elements in a slightly new way, in a new medium, I'll say in that sense. So incorporating those multimedia elements, some marketing materials, and then ultimately going back up in the scorecard to that section specifically on enterprise, it's going to have a few more other items that you should hit in there as well. So these kind of topics from your portfolio are in there. But I think it's like C section, I think 4 or whatever it is for enterprise. That would be something to read through as well. Take a highlighter, go through all there and all those kind of things you find. And that's what your pit display content should be at the end of the day.
Yeah. And you should also like to make it easy, like just a good tip is like you can always like tailor the pages of your portfolio based on the rubric. So you know it's like the judges aren't like jumping back and forth. Like it's like you have a section on every one of these. All right. Is there a way to add or take away team members from your team? Yes. Yes. Just make sure that if you've already registered and that team member is no longer going to be competing, please like let the STEM racing team know. The sooner the better. But I think Merritt, can you remind me like if you have a team that's competing in regionals, how many team members need to continue on to compete at nationals?
Yeah, I don't think there's a formal rule set on it, but I think we generally default to 1. Has to remain so that it's not a brand new team. But just as a reminder too, you can add and change team members up until the point you register for regionals. Once you register, I'm going to say it's quote unquote locked. And then you can register different members for nationals as well, like Ivana was saying. So if you do have a situation where you've registered for regionals and it's before November 7th, and you need to change somebody, please send me an email and we can do that manually. We like to avoid that if possible. But once November 7th hits, that's kind of locked for regionals. And then once you open registration for nationals, then you have the ability to change your members again. But Miranda, if you have a specific situation, send me an email or give me a call. We can step through that and getting that switched over.
Yeah. And then a question about shipping stuff to nationals. I think the recommendation is you don't do that. You bring it with you. Like you can't ship to the hotel, for example. That is not allowed. But Merritt, correct me if I'm wrong in that regards.
Yeah, no shipping for nationals is how it's written in the rules right now. We'll double check and verify that for when we release the official document again for nationals this year, but I would expect it to be the same way. I will say we only check that you haven't shipped things to the hotel. I'm not telling you what to do, but if there's a local FedEx that happens to be a half-mile walk from the hotel, then
Or you have a family member and you ship it to their kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, and
You can't check per se. Like you just can't are not allowed to ship things to the hotel
yeah.
directly.
Unfortunately, just at the venue, we just don't have space to receive it all. And so we don't want to be unfair to some teams. It's also kind of from a sustainability standpoint. We want you to think of this like you're going to a trade show when you're bringing in your pit display elements. And if you were headed to a trade show, those are the kinds of things that you would ship in the hull of an airplane with you and, have 1 or 2 crates and you would set that all up at a trade show just from a few boxes. And so we want to kind of get out of the mindset of shipping a pallet, shipping a bunch of big boxes. How can we package and move things kind of sustainably? The plane's already coming with you on it. How can we pretend that together? So it's kind of the mentality of why we've made the shift as well. But yeah, ultimately we're monitoring the hotel receiving shipments. And so that's the only way we are able to verify that. So, but yeah.
All right, moving on. So any tips for a new team that is just starting out? Is it feasible goal to finish all this by December 3rd if you start today? Any specific documents for sponsorship? And if you, okay, so is it feasible? Absolutely. This is your one shot to qualify for nationals as well. Like you have to compete at regionals if you want to have the shot to go to nationals. So our recommendation is absolutely try to get as much as possible and submit it. We understand that it is a tight crunch. It is upcoming, but I do think it is doable. And to your question about if you don't finish everything on time, just keep communicating with us and let us know like where you're at. And we can work something out with your specific team. But ideally, we want to be able to have you get information in front of the judges to give you feedback for improving it for nationals. And then, yeah, go for it, Merritt.
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna echo what Ivana said. Just keep us informed. Please don't come to us December 2nd at midnight. Hey, our car's just getting off the mill right now. Let
Yeah.
us know, hey, it's a week before, our mill just broke down, we're having troubles, all that kind of stuff. Send us a quick message, just keep us in the loop. And like Ivana said, this is your opportunity not only to qualify for nationals, but get that judge's feedback, which is really going to be that invaluable part. The elements for regionals, just as a reminder, are pared down from what nationals is, right? So you're only sending one car, you're sending shorter portfolios, you're doing kind of a digital pit display. And it's all
Video,
intended,
yeah.
a filmed verbal presentation, so it's not live, no interviews. It's all intended to help you grow for nationals. So get that judge's feedback about, hey, when you suddenly make a big portfolio instead of the 5 pages you have now, here's what we'd like to see you expand on. Here's what you covered really well already. Those kinds of feedback is what you're getting from the judges. So you want to make the most out of it. You don't want to just submit a blank document. But ultimately, what again is a good reminder of how you qualify for nationals. It's going to be the top 40 professional teams and the top 15 development class teams. So just keep that in mind as you're competing. You got to score within the top 40 or the top 15 to qualify. But I would still say it's definitely feasible. It's going to be a lot to do, but if you do your best and you get your best shot, you get that feedback from the judges at regionals, then you still also have a lot of time before nationals to make those changes and keep advancing. And yes, just keep us involved. Please don't call me at 5 o'clock and be like, hey, the car's not going to get there. Because it happens every year, and it makes the situation harder then.
Yeah. And then as far as like specific documents you need for sponsorship, so on our within the portal, there is a virtual training guide, and there is a section on fundraising, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And there is a video for some general recommendations. It also links to sponsorship packet examples for what past teams have done. So this would be like kind of the recommendation, but basically just getting the word out of your team and just start getting those connections within your community to try and get sponsorship that way. And think of it too, like sponsorships can be monetary values, but they can also just be in-kind donations, whether that be t-shirts for regionals, because you guys all want to wear the same t-shirts for the video that you're going to record for your verbal presentation. But it could also be partnerships with a local university, a local engineering firm that gives you guys feedback on your car design, stuff like that. All those things are valuable for the teams, not just monetary value. All right. Okay. So if our initial plan is different from what we are actually following, how would you recommend us to show that in our portfolio? Can you explain your initial plan as in your car design, or what is that? Yeah,
Oh,
a
it's
little, go for
yeah.
it.
Basically, the initial like time estimation I made is different from what we're actually using right now, because we had to change the timeline a little to meet the resources we have right now. So I was
Yeah,
wondering how to show that. And
you're talking specifically, I'm trying to think. I mean, absolutely show that in your portfolio and talk about how you've iterated your plan, whether that is like you're in your project management portfolio or your enterprise portfolio. I think initial plan probably sounds a little bit more of project management side of things. And you can definitely show it like iteration of like, hey, this is what we started with, and we modified it as part of like your I forgot, not the planning phase, but the monitoring and control phase of the project management side of things. And this is what you came up with as being like a more efficient plan for the resources you had. So I think absolutely don't disregard the fact that you started with something else and you are now working on like, version 2.0 of your plan. Definitely include that within your portfolio because that's part of the competition as well, like how you're cycling through iterations and improving what you're doing. Okay. Question came about the example, the rendered example I showed of the pit display, and it had items on the tabletop. For regionals in the professional class, are we allowed to add objects and elements like that? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So basically the rendering that I showed earlier, this is basically what the pit display it would look like at nationals in person. It's this kind of frame. It's about 8 feet tall, 3 feet deep. No, yes, it is. So you kind of want to generally, this is exactly what it would look like. So this render is a visual digital representation of what your physical pit display is going to look like. And whether that is that you're going to create a table or maybe you're going to have a different kind, like some people like, I don't know, have like little blocks on the side and they'll fill the blocks with stuff. Or maybe your table isn't going to look this way. You're going to just have a rectangular table. You can absolutely design to be that way. And on the tabletop, you can put your car, you can put your business cards, you can put stickers, whatever it is that you want to put on your pit display. You're going to do a digital representation of what that would look like if we were to walk up to your pit display at nationals. Okay, so what are the things we need to turn in by December 3rd? So my recommendation to this is one, within our virtual training guide as well, we have past info sessions down here. And the one I hosted about 2 weeks ago talks about, yeah, right here, the tips and tricks project elements. It goes into very, very, very detailed what you need to include. But this all comes out of your competition regulations. So if I'll scroll up to that, it tells you exactly what you need to submit for regionals in a listed out form. So right here, so these are your project elements that you need to submit by that December 3rd deadline. It'll be your STEM racing car that you have to ship and has to arrive by the end of the day of December 3rd. You need to submit your digital portfolios. If you're professional, it would be your design engineering, your enterprise, and your project management, your video presentation, your digital pit display, your video challenge, which is just kind of a 30 to minute long video of your team. And basically you get to be as creative as possible. It's like an intro on your team. Your drawings, your team logo, and then when you ship your car, you have to submit it with a car submission checklist. But I would highly recommend going back and viewing this info session from earlier this month. It goes into all the details and tips and tricks for each of the elements that you need to submit. Okay, moving on. So policy if your car or pit display is misplaced by an airline when traveling to nationals. So the main recommendation is that you hand carry your cars onto your flight. Pit display items could be like a risk assessment that you like work towards, but definitely you should carry on your cars.
Yeah, in theory, your cars should never leave your possession until they're checked in with STEM racing staff for scrutineering. So you want to, I mean, someone should always kind of have your cars. Please, 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 please do not send your cars in the hull of an airplane. It's not pressurized sometimes. Like the temperatures, all of that can affect your car. You definitely want to make sure those are with you on the plane, in a carry-on, in somebody's purse kind of bag. Like the backpack that you're able to take on. Please,
Yeah.
please don't ship that under. The other thing that I threw on there is we're still finalizing the schedule, but this year for nationals, check-in is going to be taking place on Sunday. And then the pit display build isn't actually going to be taking place until Monday evening. So if it is something that if there is unfortunately lost luggage or some kind of issue, we do have a little bit of time to work through that before the pit display build. And ultimately, it's something that your team probably should plan for the contingency. But we're gonna work with you if something does happen. Hopefully, it doesn't. But just keep, hopefully, rest assured in that. And I think Ivana, you might have skipped the one before that. I don't know if you
My
answered that
bad.
one on the how many teams qualify for nationals from each region. And the answer is it varies. So the way that you qualify for nationals, the state champions, so the highest scores in each state automatically advance. And we won't know how many states are participating until registration closes on November 7th. For reference, last year I think we had 15 or 14, Ivana.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So that would be, I'm just going to say it's 15. Sorry, so that's 15 state champions that would be advancing. The remainder of those 40 slots, we then take all of the other teams in the US and rank them by score. And then your highest score teams would fill out the next 40. You also have any returning world champions, or not world champions, world finalists get to bypass regionals. So if they elect to come to the national finals, those will be up to 3 of those spots. And then the rest are kind of filled from the score length. Then if we do have over as well, it kind of would go to a waitlist system. So if somebody score or qualifies but elects not to go, then it goes to a waitlist team. So it can ultimately vary if you have a lot of states participating in one region and a lot of teams, they might have more teams from that region that end up qualifying for nationals.
And then similar, I think similar to development class, just we have less slots available for development class.
Correct. Yep. And I think that's the bottom of the question list. We got one about where can I contact you? If you need to reach out to us, I'm Merritt at stemracing.us, and I put that in the chat. Ivana is Ivana at stemracing.us. And if you're ever not sure how to spell our names or who to reach out to specifically,
there's also
info at stemracing.us, that goes to our main line, and then I'll forward it on to whoever would best be able to answer your questions, whether, again, it's about fundraising, scrutineering, everything we've talked about here, or if you have a question about registration, any of that, please always feel free to reach out. We're here to help you. And again, the more time you can always give us, that helps us get back to you in time.
Yep. And then I think I just wanted to remind everybody our next info session will be November 5th. I believe that's a Wednesday. And the topic of this will be car manufacturing, paint and finish, where we'll talk about basically all the recommendations of how you should manufacture, paint and finish your car to kind of have the like better, what is it? It's like good, better, best type of ranking on how to get your car looking as best as possible. But yeah, any other questions?
I'd say great questions tonight, guys.
Yeah.
These are all fantastic questions to be thinking about, especially those that are looking ahead towards nationals and trying to make sure you, I assume, consider that when you're creating your regionals display, which is great. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, that is all we got. So I'll stop the recording for now.